March is close. 9 days away now, 10 days away.
What's today?
I don't know.
The 19th? Is this a 28-day?
I never know, the 29th. Anyway, the good news is we kind of got a sneak peek into how the NCAA committee is thinking right now. Their first top 16 seed reveal, and here it is. And basically, this is just a chance to see how they are evaluating teams. All this can clearly change, but if the season ended today, Arizona on the top line is a 1 seed in the South. Committee has them as the 3rd best team behind the Zags and Auburn, but we should point out that Auburn then promptly lost to Florida after this came out. UCLA, the 14th overall seed, which would put them as a 4 in the Midwest. So a lot to dive into here. USC obviously did not make the cut. We'll talk about that in a minute, but your overall reaction, Drew? Overall reaction is that UCLA being at a 4, it's understandable at this point, although I think that they will finish higher. I think they'll end up probably at a 2 or a 3 seed when it's all said and done here in a couple weeks. And then for Arizona, clearly in the driver's seat to get a 1 seed, although it wouldn't be the end of the world if at the end of the day, Arizona winds up as the 2 seed in the West. That would not be a terrible result at all, because then they'd be playing in San Francisco should they get to the Sweet 16. But we know that that Arizona fan base, they're going to travel to wherever they are. San Antonio or San Francisco, I know that they're going to be getting on the plane from Tucson. There's no
or drive.
Yes.
They'll do it.
Yeah, they will. All right, so USC, we mentioned, not in the top 16. Not horribly surprising, but I think it's worth looking at how their resume stacks up with a couple of teams that the committee does have in the top 16 right now, Providence and Texas. And I think the thing that stands out as you look at that is the quad 1 wins. Providence and Texas both have 5. USC has 3. Strength of schedule, also the other number that jumps off the screen. That's huge. And for USC, what we are not showing there is the non-conference strength of schedule. And for the Trojans this year, it is not a pretty number. Now, I think when they scheduled some of those games, they thought they were going to be better games for their resume. The San Diego States, they didn't get to play against Oklahoma State. And even though the Cowboys aren't great this year, it still is a game against a Big 12 team, and they didn't get to play that game because of COVID. So for USC, not in the top 16, but again, not the end of the world, because, hey, if they end up with a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, then if you do get to the Sweet 16, you're probably playing the number 1 seed. If they finish with a 6 seed or even a 7 seed, whatever, just get into the tournament, and then as we know, anything can happen. Exactly right, and they have 3 quad 1 opportunities left. All right, so Don MacLean always has some opinions on all of these things. No, not me. That's what we love about you, is your opinions, Don. In Berkeley for Utah Cal. We'll ask you about that game in a moment, but just first things first, your reaction to the first top 16 reveal by the committee.
Well, Arizona earned the number 1 seed, and I have a feeling they're going to keep it once we get to the actual tournament. But I look at UCLA. You guys talked about USC. I've always been of this opinion, speaking of opinions, that your seed doesn't matter. Let's just look at UCLA last year. They were 11 seed in the playing game and got to the Final Four. So, yes, you want to win games, and yes, you want to be a higher seed. But to me, what's more important is playing well, creating momentum for yourself down the home stretch. UCLA the last couple of weeks hasn't been as good as they were earlier in the season. Can they recapture that coming down the home stretch? I think they can. They need to get Tiger Campbell back in the lineup. But we saw it from UCLA last year. They got hot at the end. They ran through the tournament and got to the Final Four. So for any of our teams that get into the NCAA tournament, to me, it's not about what seed they are. It's about how they're playing when the tournament starts.
Don, for UCLA, what do you think is the key for them to be able to start playing their best basketball when it matters most? Is it the offensive end of the floor, the defensive end of the floor, or is it just kind of a combination of everything?
Well, I think they have enough offense, Drew. I think every team in our league, I mean, especially talking about NCAA tournament teams, it starts on the defensive end. It just does. And so, you know, UCLA has been good defensively, but they have another gear that we've seen in the past, and we saw it last year in the NCAA tournament. So I have a feeling, you know, knowing that they know that, and we've seen it, that they are going to flip some sort of switch. The defense rises up, because to me, they have enough offense.
You know, I think one of the other things that you look at, and again, this top 16 reveal is just a chance to sort of get a window into where the committee's at, but quad 1 wins are what matter a lot more than the net. Sometimes we get so hung up on the net, but you look at Houston, they're 4th in the net, and they are not in the top 16. That's because they don't have any quad 1 wins. So just to circle back on Arizona, Don, I know you said that seeding maybe doesn't really matter. It's about matchups, but what do you make of the Wildcats right now, and where they are headed and what you think they are actually capable of in March?
Ashley, I was there for their 2nd game of the season, and I was shocked at how good they were. Like, I wasn't expecting that. And not only have they kept that all year, to me, I think they've improved. I think that the role definition of all these guys, like when you watch an Arizona game now, you know exactly what you're going to get. Now, all the shots don't always go in, but every player on that team understands exactly what he's out there to do. And I would flip it on this and say, I'll be more shocked if they don't get to a Final Four than I will if they do get to a Final Four. They've been that good, they've been that consistent, and they check a lot of boxes. So when you talk about matchups, you brought up that word, Ashley, like, what's their weakness? Maybe they're not the best three-point shooting team around, but they're not bad either. So when I look at Arizona, how am I going to beat them? The only way you beat them or stay in the game with them is you have to make them guard for the clock. If you're going to go early clock misses, you're dead. You're done. And so any team scouting Arizona and potentially playing them has got to be saying, we're going to down-tempo it, we're going to make them guard so that they can't get out in transition.
Yeah, it's amazing to me to think back to the beginning of the season when they weren't ranked the first 2 weeks.
Right.
And boy, it's been amazing to see what they've done under the first year of Tommy Lloyd as a head coach.